2 months ago, I kept hearing about immigration, and about 2 months ago, I wrote Bob Goodlatte an email. And I said, Bob, I'd like to have an opportunity to sit down and talk with you about what it is you're doing up there in Congress. I understand there's some bills going through, but why don't you take time to give me 20 minutes of your time to talk about it? And he did. He called me about a week later. He had his chief counsel, lawyer counsel for the Judiciary Committee with him on the phone, and he had one of his assistants of the committee on the phone. And he talked at some length about it, about the bills, etc. He had his assistant send me the actual bills. Since that time, I've talked to Goodlatte 3 additional occasions, each for about 30 to 40 minutes. Since that time, I've had about 20 hours of input time with the Judiciary Committee. And primarily that time has been to go over my questions and my concerns concerning the content of the bill to get a better understanding of it. And again, I'm saying this because I want to emphasize something. My conversations with members of the judiciary staff, their lawyers, has resulted in changes in the bill. That doesn't mean that I have anything to offer any more than anyone else in this room. What it means is I spent a heck of a lot of time working on it. And what I'm trying to tell you is if you're willing to be involved, if you're willing to put the effort in, you can have an impact. It takes a lot of work. I watched all 4 bills go through the what's called markup sessions in the Judiciary Committee. And some of it lasted to 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it went on all day. I don't understand how those men and women can even sit there that long. I mean, it is a long session every time they're doing it. So whether they're dedicated to the principle of liberal or conservative, they're willing to sit there and work on this thing and work on this thing and work on this thing to get what they want. Every one of the bills that went through were passed in strong force, primarily because the Republican side of it took the bit, the Republican members of that Judiciary Committee took the bit in the mouth and withstood everything that the Democrats had to throw at them during those committee meetings. They showed a very firm position on it. Now, what I want to do is go over first the bills, and then I want to tell you some of the details of what has been Goodlatte's comments. There are 4 bills that are involved that were introduced into the Judiciary Committee. H.R. 2278, H.R. 1772, H.R. 1773, and 2131. These 4 bills provide a step-by-step process to reestablish the integrity of what we had as an immigration protocol, and it remedies, I'm not going to say every one of them, but it remedies a vast majority of the problems of how to handle undocumented aliens, and it's not to give them citizenship. Now, I want to call your attention to the top 2 bills because they are the jewels in the crown. They are the ones that actually do the restructuring the immigration system, our laws, our codes, to get it back to what it was at one time. The second 2 bills here look at particular aspects of those undocumented aliens who are in this country, and particularly how we get people here in on visas and how we can make the best use of them. The first bill, 2278, is called SAFE. It stands for Strengthening and Fortifying Enforcement Act. And it was introduced by a fellow by the name of Representative Trey Gowdy. Does anyone here ever seen Trey Gowdy? Yeah. He's impressive. He is a pure, hardcore, conservative South Carolinian. This bill has been slated to be reviewed by 3 other committees, which I showed there: the Homeland Security, Agriculture, and Natural Resources. Chances are they will defer to what has gone through the Judiciary Committee. I have not heard of any of them actually reviewing it. But the purpose of the bill is to enforce both our interior and our border security, and to improve what's called visa security. And I'm going to try to give you just some highlight bulletins from each one of these, for each one of these bills that I talk about. I've not done anything here that you can't go on the Judiciary Committee website and see for yourself. So these are the main bullets which are spoken of The purpose of this thing is to strengthen our border security. And let me give you just a couple examples of how it does it. Right now, if there is federal property and within 100 miles of the border, I don't care whether it's the northern border, the southern border, or what, but if there's federal property within 100 miles of a border, that department that controls that federal property can and does often prevent enforcement of border security. It literally will prevent the border security agents from going into the area. The Department of Interior has done it a number of times. This bill prevents any department from preventing enforcement of border security. It basically says that our border security forces can occupy at will and go after anything regarding immigration in that 100-mile boundary. They can't work inside of that 100-mile boundary, further in, 150, 120, whatever, but they can enforce in that first 100 miles from the boundary. It will grant states and localities the right and demand that they enforce federal laws. It will prevent, in other words, it's set up to prevent the federal government from going after states like Arizona, trying to use the federal laws. And it explicitly talks about this in the budget and in the bills. It also allows the local and state governments to create their own laws as long as they're not in conflict with the federal laws. I'd say it strengthens national security. Really, I'm in a way repeating what I've already said. What it does do, it makes a serious effort at trying to just give us protection against criminal aliens. Right now, criminal aliens can get into this country and get a visa, and they can. We basically saw that happen when the terrorists came in and caused 9/11. This bill is structured to prevent the very loopholes, to prevent someone getting in here without strenuous checking. It's also make sure that where we have places in the world where we have a heightened problem, a problem with people who in those countries want to come to the United States, we have particularly tough protocols and procedures. You can think of the Middle East as the countries where they're going to stiffen the requirements for coming into this country. In general, it's going to improve visa security. If you remember when the situation with the killing of the children in Connecticut, it turned out there were students who were supposed to be in Indiana. Their visa said they were in Indiana. It ended up they were in other states like Connecticut and participated to some extent in what happened. Never, I don't think anything was brought against them, but we had students, and it's been evident in other areas. We have someone that comes into this country comes in as a student. Their visa says where they must go, but they found so many the federal government has found so many loopholes around not enforcing it that in this bill they will strengthen the requirements on visa security. ICE officers, right now they have trouble even arresting aliens. They have limitations on what they can do. This will lift the limitations and let them perform their jobs of actually performing arrests and holding them until procedures can be taken place to either get rid of the aliens who are undocumented, and in particular where they are criminal aliens who either in their home country had criminal charges against them or have added criminal charges against themselves once they've come in here. The final bullet is pretty. I think if they can really work, this is in the bill, to enforce an accountability of the administration on its prosecutorial, in other words, prosecuting discretions. In other words, this executive branch does not prosecute. It takes the latitude. Oh, we're not going to prosecute. This bill is directed at preventing that and forcing the federal government to bring charges against undocumented aliens and criminal people who are particularly of criminal backgrounds. The second major bill is called the Legal Workforce Act. One of the major problems we have in this country is that we have people here who are undocumented who are working. They're a part of our workforce. And it's admitted they're here. This was introduced by Lamar Smith. Lamar Smith was formerly the chair of the Judiciary Committee. He's still on the committee. He's from Texas. Again, there's 3 other committees that have the responsibility or been assigned the opportunity to review the bill. I think in deference they passed it on and said the Judiciary Committee has done its thing, so we won't tie it down. But basically it's trying to make sure that we're not having an illegal immigration process in which jobs are given to illegal or undocumented aliens. It is a way of trying to get the employers involved in an E-Verify system and make it more convenient for them to be involved with the less government paperwork. Some of the highlights of the bill. Right now, our E-Verify system is primarily a paper-based system. So there's a heck of a lot of lag in it. What they want to do is entirely turn it over into an electronic system. Now, if I were to say, give you my typical sarcasm, I would say computers didn't solve a darn thing, they just kept you busy all day trying to figure out why they don't work. On an electronic system, if it would work, would be there and would perform in a timely manner, and you wouldn't sit around and have a day's lag or a week's lag on things regarding people that are in this country. If this bill were to go into effect, it would be going to what's called a gradual phase-in. If you had, say, over 20,000 employees in your company, you would have to adhere to it within a 6-month time. But I think it's something like between 20,000 and 500, you have to adhere to it within a 1-year time. If it's between 500 and like 200 or something, it's like a 1.5 years, or it's down to 20, it's like a 1.5 years. And if it's less than that number of 20, then you've got 2 years to adhere to it. Basically, it's trying to put the onus on large companies to follow this electronic e-verifying system where they get the most people coming in who typically are undocumented, or whether it's a typical hiring of undocumented aliens. Agriculture gets a buy on it for the first 24 months. They've got 24 months to come in alignment with it. This brings up an aspect of which I said to myself when I first began to look at this thing, these bills, and talk to Goodlatte, and it was this. Ronald Reagan said, if you can agree 80% with what's going on with the other guy, you've got a pretty good agreement with him. So I said to myself, if I can find 80% of the bill I can go along with, then I can go along with the bills. I have found actually there's more than 80% that I can agree to. I'm conservative. And frankly, what I'm doing here with Goodlatte is a big about face with him. Because my history with Goodlatte has been, when I came through the front door, he saw me and said, oh my God, and ran out the back door. We just had confrontation after confrontation after confrontation. But I wasn't getting anywhere with him in the process. I wasn't having any impact. So that's one reason for trying to have a more friendly face and sort of try to understand what's going on and ask, where do I really stand, and is the man or is he not doing what is in keeping with what my position would be as a conservative.